You know what I absolutely hate? When people take advice from other people that are not doing what they are trying to accomplish. For instance, when people are taking marriage advice from someone who's divorced. Since I used the topic of marriage right out of the gate, let's start with that. I have a problem with people who are going to people who are divorced for marriage advice. If you have seen someone who is not successful at a marriage, I know that the thought process could be, well, I know that they weren't successful at it. Therefore, they must have learned something from it and now can pass it on to me. Not necessarily. You'll be surprised how many people have been in marriages that have failed, that haven't actually learned the concept of communication, and therefore have not even really heard from the other person what was truly wrong at the core of that relationship, and therefore cannot give you actual guidance on how to succeed in a marriage. Don't do this. Don't do these things where you're going to people who have not succeeded at the level that you are looking to succeed at. It does not make any sense. The theme of this video is going to be definition, to define something. So the most important thing is to actually define what a successful marriage is to us, what we are trying to accomplish in a marriage, and what we are trying to get out of that marriage in order to make sure we're talking to the people who are actually doing that. So when they give us advice, it's something that we can actually listen to, absorb, and utilize later on in life. I truly think there is just this cluster of arbitrary definitions of what success looks like. And we try to throw this cluster on every single thing that could potentially be defined as successful or as a failure in our lives. And because of that, you don't actually have a true differentiation of what success looks like in different facets of life and in different phases of life. So let me touch on the next thing, money. When people are talking about money, there are all these different people out there who are rich and wealthy and have reached such high levels of monetary success. And it's awesome. But the problem with it is too often we are just looking at all these different people who are making money and saying, wow, I want my life to look like theirs because they have so much money. Not realizing that these people are humans just like us, meaning that they have faults and they have things that are great. Now, it's important to differentiate what faults are acceptable to you and what traits you really need to have in order to deem yourself successful. For me, when I'm looking at people who have money, when I see stuff that just completely revolves around them showing off their cars and their watches and the women they're around and the type of lifestyle they live, whether it's drinking or smoking or drugs or clubs or whatever it is, that stuff to me doesn't deem them successful. In fact, I see that kind of as a failure. And the reason I do personally, you don't have to agree. This is my definition of success when it comes to money. The reason I see this as a failure is because I feel like they're wasting the gift that they are given on things that are completely superficial and just based into this world, not really looking at what can be done in order to improve everybody's life that they could possibly touch. Not to say that they can't be using some of this money for good stuff. I know they can. And not to say that having superficial things isn't the best. Like for instance, if I had millions upon millions of dollars, I would absolutely have a nice car, I would have a few nice watches for sure. I'd have a nice house that's, whatever, that's cool. But at the end of the day, that's not what I would be throwing out on Instagram. That's not what I would be throwing out for a bunch of people to look at, gawk over, and fawn over. It's not something that I feel is necessary. I feel like that's just part of what you can use. But the most important thing, and this is the most important thing for me, and these are the people that I look at, are the people who are using that money to help their family, their friends, and people who are in substantially worse positions than they are in order to lift them up. You have to make sure that when you're defining what even monetary success looks like, there's a strong definition. There is a strong propensity for us as humans just to gravitate towards it as a concept, not understanding that that concept has multiple layers. So when you're looking at people who have money, make sure you are watching and following the people that have made money the correct way and are now using it in the correct way based on what you define it as. You cannot just gravitate towards anybody, or else every single opportunity will just seem like something that you should be going towards because it's going to lead you towards monetary success. You have to be able to use discernment. It's incredibly, incredibly important to be able to discern what is right for you and what could be generally right for a group of people who are trying to reach a specific point. I think, though, a lot of our issues stem a lot further away than the point of actually reaching that monetary success or getting married or whatever it is. I think it's all rooted in our foundation, in our birth, because who we are born to is really, really impactful on the rest of our lives. Those people shape us. If we don't have great parents, it becomes a lot more difficult to become a great person because you have to figure out a lot more on your own. So I say this to say, when you're looking at yourself as a potential parent one day, or if you already are a parent, make sure that that definition of what a successful parent is very clear, and that it is probably one of the sternest things that you have ever tried to define in your life. Because ultimately, those people who you look at to model yourself after for a parent perspective is extremely, extremely important for our future generations. You may not have the best parents right now, or you may have the absolute best parents ever. Realize that at the end of the day, similarly to how we said it before, everybody is human, meaning our parents have things that are positive and things that are negative. The most important thing to understand is that you really have to figure out what part of those positive things that you're taking on and what negative parts that you're also taking on. So that as you're growing up, you can start being a little bit more critical and start understanding that, hey, I'm starting to see some of these negative attributes leak out into these portions of my life. How can I start learning from the fact that this has been rooted in my parents, and how can I start removing it from my life and just keeping the positives? And then you have to look at other parental examples around you and pick and choose the best things in order for you to inherit those things and start utilizing it and hopefully multiplying the positivity that is within you in order for you to pass that off to your children. The whole reason of me even bringing this up is to say this. Make sure that you are choosing the right people to look at, and make sure that you are taking advice from the right people. Just because you have been exposed to a specific circle of people does not mean that's the circle that you have to stick with for the rest of your life. You have the ability to pick and choose. So make sure to do that with the correct state of mind. If you want to be in a healthy relationship, listen to people who are in healthy relationships. Don't listen to your friends who are potentially sleeping around a ton or not worried about getting into a long-term relationship because they're scared of commitment or being with one person forever or whatever the plethora of issues that could arise from being in a relationship, whatever that is. Don't just listen to the people who are buying superficial things with the money. Listen to the people who are using that money to multiply it and to set up their family for generations and to make sure they're helping people around them who have not had the opportunity that they have. When it comes down to it, you have to be your harshest critic. You have to be looking consistently at who it is that you've been weaning off of your whole life. Make sure that when you're at the ages of 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 and beyond, that you are not looking back and saying, I could have and I should have. Instead, even if it's a harder decision to make in the moment, make that difficult decision. Follow the path of the people who you know you should be following. Make sure you are admiring the right people. Make sure that you have your scope on correctly and that you're always looking towards that path and that path alone. Do not ever let yourself off the hook. Thank you guys so much for listening. I love you guys. Have a fantastic week. And please drop some comments below on what advice you would give to people in order for them to be able to differentiate the right and the wrong for their specific path. Peace